Hello, everyone. I'm Manho Choi. I'm here today with Mitch Eckstein, and this is the College and Career Center Career Pathway Podcast. I'm here with Mitch Eckstein, and he's going to talk about his career path in social work. So, thank you for taking the time to speak with us about your career. Our goal is to give the students an idea of what it's like to have a career such as yours. Also, please talk about your specific path to get where you are today. Mr. Eckstein, what is your occupation and where are you employed?
So my occupation, I'm a social work supervisor for the County of San Mateo. I work with a program called California Children's Services that serves children 0 to 21. And we provide care coordination. So we help arrange services.
So, so please describe what a typical day at work is like.
So a typical day starts about 7 to 7:30 in the morning. And I start off the day reviewing requests that have come in for our care coordinators to review and approve. And I make sure to notify people which ones are due to be decisioned. And I also notify all my coworkers who's going to be working that day and any special instructions for the day. So that's in my role as a supervisor.
So would you say that's like an 8-hour workday typically?
Oh, my work day is definitely an 8-hour work day.
And would you say you work about 40 hours a week?
Yes, it's a 40-hour a week job.
So what would you describe how would you describe the main aspect of your job? Like, what do you actually do?
Well, because I'm both a social worker and a supervisor, there's a combination of things. I do consultation and supervision with the staff. I serve on management committees. I represent our program in our county. And then as a social worker, I help connect people to resources. I advocate for my clients. I provide brief counseling.
So please expand upon like what resources do you provide to your clients?
The list could go on and on. Basically, as a social worker, that's one of your roles is to know the community resources in your community. So it can be anything from basic needs like food, shelter, housing. It can be educationally related, special education, preparing to go to college. It can be disability specific resources. It can be addressing immigration issues. It can be just a whole variety of things.
Thank you, Mr. Eckstein. So does your profession involve travel or is it location specific?
So it used to be at my office in South San Francisco. However, due to the pandemic, I'm mostly working from home, though I also sometimes go to clients' homes. I can go to schools, medical sites. I go where I'm needed.
Thank you. And so do you like your profession?
I do. It's the only profession I really have been involved in. That says something that I've stuck with it all these years.
So you've been working for 20 years?
I've been working in this profession for about 40 years.
Wow. Yeah, you really are dedicated. So what's your favorite? So after 40 years, what have you learned? Like, what's your favorite part of this, of being a social worker?
I think getting to know the clients and their families and being able to help them achieve things that make their lives better.
Oh, that's really sweet. What do you think is, so onto a more, I guess, negative note, what do you like the least about it?
Some things are a bit repetitive and not necessarily as fulfilling. For example, quite a large percentage of our clients need housing, and I do the best I can to connect them to low cost housing because they're very low income, the clients and families I serve. However, there really isn't that much available. So, it feels like I'm not doing enough. And it's just a scarcity of resources. And
Yeah, that is a
it's hard for some of these people to get out of poverty as well due to
yeah,
their
that is
circumstances.
yeah, that is a big problem in our area. We really need to change, our housing policies. Um, so what path did you take to get this job? Like such as education, training, experience, and how
Well,
long did you spend in each?
just like you, I went through 12 years of school, ending in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got my bachelor's degree in social work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked for a few years. Well, actually, even during college, I worked in a group home with people with intellectual disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked for a few years. And then I went back and got my master's degree in social work. So the bachelor's took about 4 or 5 years, only because I changed majors more than once.
Mm-hmm.
But my master's was accelerated because I had a bachelor in social work. So it only took me 12 months.
Got it.
And, in my master's degree program, I continued to work jobs while I was studying, and mostly in the mental health field. And I got out, I worked state jobs, uh, nonprofit jobs. I'm currently working for the county of San Mateo.
So, can you elaborate on that? What other state jobs did you work to get to being a social worker?
So my first job with my bachelor's degree was sort of like my part-time jobs while in college and my four-year degree, which is working with people with intellectual disabilities. And so I started off working with people with cerebral palsy, and then I worked for state institutions where people's needs couldn't be met in the community, so they lived on a state institution campus. So I worked about three of those facilities. Um, and yeah, and then I worked for a nonprofit with that same population. And now I'm working with children with special medical needs. And some of those clients overlap with intellectual disability community.
Oh, all right. Well, this is really important work. Um, and I know they say it's tacky to talk about money, but this is an important part of every career path. So, what is the typical salary of a person starting in the career of social work? And what would be the salary range over a length of a career?
I think it really depends on your training. If you're working in a group home and you don't have a bachelor's degree, you're probably getting a little bit over minimum wage. Maybe I really don't know, maybe $20 an hour. If you have a bachelor's degree, a lot of nonprofits will hire you for maybe 40 or 50,000
A year?
a year, and that's for a full-time job. If you get your master's degree, it really depends on the setting you work in. A nonprofit, it could still be maybe 50 to 70,000. If you work in a government job, it might, for a county, it might be a little bit more. It could be 70 to, if you're a supervisor, maybe up to 120, 130. If you're working at a hospital, it can run anywhere from 50,000 to maybe 130, 140. Hospitals pay pretty good at the top end.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. So what would you say that, sorry, onto supply and demand. So would you say that there's an abundance of jobs like yours, or would you say that's difficult?
I would say that there are a lot of jobs, not all, a lot of them don't pay as well. And some of them are more challenging than others. So some of them will lead to burnout quicker. But it's definitely a career that there is opportunities for someone starting out who wants to do this type of work.
So there are a lot of varieties in the subset of social work. Would you say that there's a large demand for social work?
There is the funding sometimes changes, like sometimes there's a lot of funding in mental health and public mental health. Uh, Intellectual disabilities is always a field that's hiring. Hospitals are always hiring, but again, it depends on how the economy is doing. If you speak more than one language, especially in the Bay Area, if you speak Spanish or a Chinese dialect, or if you're in San Jose and you speak Vietnamese, those are very, you're in higher demand. As a social worker, there are probably more female than male, so sometimes they may be looking for a male for a particular position.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for talking with us. We're going to wrap it up with one last question. As you know, we're doing this podcast to showcase career paths for students. So would you recommend this career to students?
Well, I definitely would, or I wouldn't be in it for so long. I think it's a very rewarding career, and I think a lot of people I speak to who are in other careers, sometimes they say to me that they wish their careers were more meaningful. So, sometimes people do find meaning in careers where they don't directly impact people, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to see your impact. I would say you choose whatever path gives you joy. Because if you really enjoy doing computers, you really enjoy doing sales, you'll still have an impact. You just have to think about what you're doing and how it's helping people.
Exactly. Yes. For that point. So what type of person should a student be in order to do well in this career path in social work?
You need to be able to connect well with people, to understand their circumstances, not to be prejudiced. I don't think it's for someone who just wants to get into it for the money. If you want to get into it for money, there's a lot of more lucrative things. I think it takes a certain passion. And you also need to be able to set limits for yourself, because you could get burnout. Even if you're a very caring, compassionate person, you need to be able to know when you can't help something. You just do the best you can. You can't always fix everything. In fact, that's not really your job.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Eckstein, for talking with us today about your career path in social work. We really appreciate you having you on. And this has been the first episode of 2021 of the College and Career Path podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening.